Here we're going to show you how to eliminate the problem if you're on the road on a BandWagon and the AC units are dripping down water on the inside. This is the Coleman Polar Mach AC. This is a new design. We've discovered a bit of a design flaw in recent weeks, and so we'll be retrofitting all of these units as they come back to our facility. But if you're on the road and you're experiencing this problem, here is something to solve. So this is how the air conditioners look on top of your BandWagon. First thing we're going to do, if you'll notice, there are 4 Phillips screws that keep the cap on. So we'll take those off and come right back. Okay, so I've just removed the 4 screws. There's one on each corner. Phillips screwdriver will do it. Once you get those out, my lovely assistant here will pull the cap, and then you'll be able to see inside. Now you're on top of the roof of the BandWagon, and we're going to take off this this cover. That is, do you know what size?
3/8.
That is a 3/8 socket, or in this case, nut driver. If get a hold of one of those, any standard socket set will have it. Take that cover off, and then that will expose the other fan and the condenser coil, all that. You can see your lines that go into the condenser coil, or as if it's in your house, you call it the A coil. So if you hear that, that might sound familiar. In theory, any moisture that comes off in the form of condensation will get will come out. Where's the drain hole on this? Aha! Will come down into this little pan, and these 2 little holes will let all the water out, which is perfect in theory. And I'm sure on paper it works great, but in the real world, those 2 holes have a tendency to plug, and then the water will collect inside that pan, back up into this tray below the coil, and then the water drips down inside the unit. So right here, this hole here, in the BandWagon, this is when you take off your filter pan, this is what is exposed, which is why the water gets trapped inside of this tray here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some drain holes inside of this area to allow the water to escape out into the pan, and then it'll get out here and go out these drain holes here. So that's why on the BandWagon itself, when you'll see moisture running down the outside walls, that's the drain. So you go here basically in each corner. This would be on the back side of, or the front side of the unit. So where you're seeing a drill here, that would basically be toward the front of the BandWagon.
Right up against this shroud here.
Right up against the shroud. You want to make sure you...
And I've been putting them...
line them up
approximately in line
with the holes.
Yep.
Right. And then you do the same thing on the back side. In one...
Right here in this corner.
Right next to the evaporator coil there. And then no moisture can get trapped. Now, if you'll notice while he's doing that, you'll notice underneath this coil there's a piece of foam. That foam has a tendency to collect dirt and things as well. So you want to make sure whenever you're in the process of doing that, you can just gently lift up your evaporator coil, and then you can just pull that foam out, and then just set it right back down on top of it. It's not going to hurt anything. That eliminates that. And then on either side of your squirrel cage, this is known as your squirrel cage fan. This is the fan that forces air down into the BandWagon. And you want to drill more drain holes. This is probably a little bit overkill, but we want to prevent any water from pooling inside of this area. Now we've allowed all the water to get outside of the BandWagon. In the event that you're driving through a heavy downpour at highway speeds, it is possible for a small amount of water to get underneath this tray, but the cons of that possibility far are outweighed by the pros of eliminating the drain problem. Now, in the event that you don't want to climb on top of the BandWagon or can't figure out how to use a drill, then you can just turn the selector switch to high fan and turn your thermostat off. That makes it to where your compressor will not kick on, and then there will be no condensation that collects on your evaporator coil. Quick addendum on the placement of the holes. You can see there's this metal bar that runs on each side. For the most part, when you see here, this cardboard under here, this is the inside of the BandWagon. That is basically a 14-inch square. This is your squirrel cage fan that shoves the air into the BandWagon. I'm going to take this cover off so you can see where that goes. Okay, so this is the inside of the BandWagon. You want to make absolutely sure, let's zoom in here, that the holes for these get all the way up in this corner, and then over here on this side, all the way up in this corner. By going any closer to this, the squirrel cage fan down here, basically you're drilling a hole through the unit directly over the hole that's to the BandWagon. So you're basically drilling a drain hole to allow as much water as possible to leak into the BandWagon. So you want to make absolutely sure that those holes go all the way up there in the corner, all the way up there in the corner, and all the way over here in the corner by the evaporator coil. This would be on the driver's side, and all the way over in the corner by the evaporator coil on the passenger side. You want to make sure you stay away from this box where it's open downstairs to the BandWagon. So very, very careful placement of those. If you place the drain holes in the wrong spot, you're actually cutting a drain hole into the BandWagon, which is only further compounding your problem. Okay, so now we have finished drilling our holes. We have solved the problem of leaking into the BandWagon, and we're ready to throw a parade for ourselves. So you want to drill those 7 holes, remove that foam. Now we're ready to put it back together. So you just put that shroud back on, make sure everything lines up. Be careful to make sure you can see where it's working around those copper lines. Those copper lines are what carry the Freon, so you don't want to mess around with those. Be gentle with those. And then put your nuts back on just as you took them off. Tighten those back down. Again, that's a 3/8 inch socket. I'm just getting them hand tight for Michael now. Really important to put this shroud back on for a number of reasons, not the least of which that's what directs your air down into the BandWagon. So he's going to tighten all those up, and then that cover will go back on. The 2 pieces of foam that have been removed from underneath the evaporator coil, don't worry about keeping those. You can throw those away. And then place your cap back on. You want to make sure that
the fins.
Yeah, keep the cover away from the fins, on the condenser coil there. Make sure they're good.
It's easier if you line these 2 up first, get those started, and then adjust it to hit the front 2.
Got it. And then tighten those back down with a Phillips screwdriver, and you're ready to go. You're not going to be messing with anything with the electrical components or anything like that, but if it makes you feel better, to trip the breakers on each unit just as a safety precaution, probably not a bad idea. The breaker box is in the cabinet above the toilet on the left side. The breakers are labeled AC 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 is the one closest to the front of the BandWagon. Number 2 is the center. Number 3 is the one nearest the restroom of the BandWagon.